Good afternoon, folks. We have another episode of Sobering Truth, and Miss Iris Stevens is here. And Iris, what is our subject today?
Well, we're looking at let my southernisms through. We're looking at some research that one of our friends has done and said and sent to us. He's been involved in a lot of this. He does a lot of research, does a real good job with it. And so he had been looking at the Jonesboro statistics, from the city about
Yes.
how alcohol has affected, how we've been affected by alcohol and how much money. And he's got some really, really spectacular information in here. He has it all documented. It's all researched and has his little, footnotes and everything. So that's why I really enjoy looking at it. Now, of course, I've always loved statistics, and some of this is pretty remarkable. I know you've read it. What did you think?
I was really amazed at how much tax revenue the city gets from alcohol sales. And, you know, is it worth our children's lives to have this much revenue? I mean, the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
And, you
And of
know,
course, cities love money because they say, and I always look at this instead of concentrating on what we need. Like, if I think everybody's number one thing in Jonesboro would be to fix the roads in a couple of different
absolutely.
areas, to pave the roads because we've got potholes the size of hippopotamuses around here.
Right.
And we've also got traffic lined up from here to Missouri, trying to move around in Jonesboro, but basically because I think our city government has not had the foresight to to fix our roads, to direct them in areas that, we're going to be major traffic problems. I came through it was a little before 8 on, I guess it was Wednesday morning, and I was stunned. I'm down there at the Parker Road Southwest Drive, and it was absolutely unbelievable the traffic coming through there. And of course, it made me late, and I had started out in plenty of time to get there. I should have taken a different route. I just didn't think. I'm used to coming through that way, Parker Road way, and but the traffic all four directions was just incredible. And the number one thing on a survey they did some while back that they never really released because I think people didn't put down on the survey what they wanted people to put down, which were all the bike trails and the walking trails and all that kind of nonsense. Because I think the number one thing was the roads, pave the roads, help us out with some of these traffic patterns and things.
True.
So, I looked at that, the tax revenue too, and let's just go over that. In 2021, $567,162. By 2022, it was $626,095. 2023, 688,733. And by 2024, and that's with the addition of the entertainment district, 723,422. That's an amazing amount of money. When you add it up, I didn't add it up beforehand, so I wouldn't even dare do that,
Right. And
while
it's
we're
from a
on camera. But it's,
3% tax.
yeah, with
Uh,
2% for food tax. And I
Oh,
don't know what the alcohol tax is itself.
yeah.
I should have looked that up too.
I
I'm
think
very
in
remiss.
there it said I read something. I may be mistaken, but I read something about a 3% tax. But you're right about the potholes. I tore up a tire earlier this year from a pothole. I didn't see it, and it might. I had to buy a new tire, so we have to pay taxes. Plus, our tires get torn up, busted because the city won't fix the potholes.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's our number one. And instead of using this money for that, and instead of spending the majority of our money for things that we need, they want to get involved in frivolous projects. And I call them frivolous. I think bicycle trails inside the city are frivolous projects. And if you look at, we should be able to get an audit of how many actually use them because we've got over 700 cameras ringing the city. And in the city, they could easily take a look at how many people are riding these bicycles, but they haven't done that. And I wonder why. because they're going to see that I bet it's not more than 2% of the people using those at any time. And that tells you that let's spend money where it's going to be useful to the majority of people. But back to the taxes, to put that amount of money in perspective, the revenue for 2024 represents a staggering 510% increase compared to the pre-COVID baseline. That's a more than six-fold increase in alcohol tax revenue in just 5 years, a rate of growth that far outpaces population or general economic expansion. And then we talk about some things here we'll do in just a minute. I wanted to go through these. He had several different takeaways and calls us a moist, dry county at the very beginning. That, we've talked about that before, how Jonesboro isn't wet and it isn't dry, even though we voted a couple of times, more than twice, to, let the county know that we want and let the state know what we
Three
wanted.
times, I think, wasn't it?
And the original vote was in 1945, was it? And the second vote was in
so.
76. Well, I'm sorry.
I said, I believe you're right.
Yeah, it was before the end of the war. And the second vote was in 76, I think. And then the third vote was in 2014, and that didn't actually make it to a vote. They couldn't get enough names on the petition to actually make it to a vote. So I think that's a pretty good indication that it wouldn't have passed, even if they had gotten enough names on the petition. So, we've got a dry county that isn't dry. And I just want to read some of the stuff here because it's pretty interesting. He says the paradox of booming alcohol market in a dry county is made possible by state law, and we've talked about that, that allows qualified municipalities to permit alcohol sales and buy the drink. This moist county provision is not a minor exception, and Jonesboro has become a loophole leveraged on an industrial scale to fundamentally subvert the county's dry status. And that's all talking about Craighead. Since 2021 alone, the Jonesboro City Council has approved approximately 25 new alcohol permits, bringing the total to over 75. This aggressive use of a legal mechanism has effectively created a thriving and rapidly expanding alcohol market, where voters have explicitly forbidden one. So, and I'm going to say this in every talk that we have that talks about our city council, these people took an oath to uphold the law. And so what do? In the latest case, once they destroyed, they demolished these old Citizens Bank building, and they have this empty lot down there, and they need to know what to do with it, and they want to do something with it that would bring back the money that it cost them to demolish it. Looks to me like they could use some of their alcohol money for that, right?
Right.
But anyway, one of our city council people decided that we needed to put, basically a restaurant bar down there. We'd make money off of that. What's really ironic is it would be right across the street from the Craighead County Courthouse, which is where the votes came in to vote this county dry.
That is ironic.
Our city council is doing a spectacular job of upholding what they were expected to uphold. It makes me very frustrated.
We are not very bright. We don't know how much money it will bring in. We just get out of the way, citizens, and let us smart people do what we do.
Yeah. Which brings us back to alcohol-related crime. And this was his fourth takeaway. While tax revenue soared, data from the Jonesboro Police Department reveals a troubling correlation between increased alcohol availability and a rise in specific alcohol-related crimes. Gee, who would have thought it, right?
Duh.
Comparing incident reports from 2019, the year before the major increase began, to 2024 shows a stark increase. Driving under the influence incidents increased from 169 in 2019 to 326 in 2024. I'll repeat those numbers, but when you're dealing with numbers in a situation like this, it's hard to hear. It's hard to get it. But in 2019, 169 DUIs. In 2024, 326. But alcohol is not creating a problem for anybody, right? This increase?
No.
Nah.
But it takes only one to kill a whole family or
Yeah.
a carload of teenagers or maim somebody for life.
And, these are incidents, but one, I need to get on to him to see if he would look up the number of DUI related deaths in Jonesboro over that period of time, because I think that would, and we do have alcohol related deaths in Jonesboro, usually inside the city limits, where actually we should look at all of Craighead County, but because Jonesboro is the one that has allowed all of the alcohol, within the city limits,
Right.
I would want to look to see how many people were involved in wrecks that were catastrophically injured or killed. Normally, you don't have that many killed within a city because of the speed, the difference in speed
Yeah.
inside a city versus outside the city. But I think that would be good to look at, because I know that there are going to be some. And yes, I am going to say the unsayable, and I'm going to say that the city council should take responsibility for some of that.
Well,
If they
yeah.
when they
Well,
allow that amount of alcohol.
isn't there a law where bartenders, I don't know if it's across the country or different states, but if a bartender serves someone that they know is drunk, they can be held uh, personally liable for that if they get in an
Yes,
accident.
yes, that is, and I'm like you. I don't know if that's everywhere or if that's in certain locations, but I do know that they do that in places. Bartenders are supposed to cut people off,
Yes.
before they've had enough to have a problem. Now, that's also relative too, because I guess the bartender is looking at a person. If he looks like he's had enough or had too much, they cut them off.
Right.
Person still has to get home. If a bartender cuts them off because they've had enough, that person still can go out and get in his car and weave his way home,
That's true.
creating all sorts of problems. And
But
that's one of the interesting. I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
That's one of the interesting things that I've heard people say is we need to go wet, fully wet, so we can have our alcohol here in town. And because how many people get killed on the road from, Poinsett County line or Greene County line going down to get their alcohol and coming back? And you know what my response is to them? They're not supposed to have an open container in the vehicle anyway.
Right.
So don't tell me that, that's any different than people who eat at a restaurant up here and get soused and then
Yeah.
drive home clear across town. When you drive from Poinsett County back into Jonesboro with whatever, you're not supposed to have that open. You're not supposed to be drinking, so there shouldn't be any increase in alcohol deaths, from that
Right.
perspective. Well, that's a non-issue. It's a silly comment to make.
Yeah. They use it though.
They use it because they don't have people that come back and say, no, if you get stopped even for speeding and you've got an open container in the car, that's an extra fine. And they may
Right.
pull you out and take you off to jail right there. So, no, they're not supposed to go to the county line and then drink all the way back. We've got enough of them, drinking all the way home from the restaurant up here, and from their entertainment district, where I suppose they can take their open glass and get in their car and go home, which I think is a
Yeah.
violation too.
Someone told me today that, now I don't know if it's true or not, or if you or Bob maybe know, that they don't have, they're not carrying that red cup in the entertainment district now. They're just carrying a clear cup. Have you heard anything about that?
No, I haven't heard it. I don't go down there, so
I don't either. It's,
it would be interesting to find out. I may ask my granddaughter. I think she goes. I don't know if she goes down there during entertainment district hours, but I know there are a couple of restaurants she likes to eat at down there.
it's like I remember some of these restaurants when they started serving liquor. I think we've talked about this before. They had you sign in as a
Yeah.
member, quote unquote, and they
Hmm.
don't do that now. They don't. I mean,
No.
everything's so lax, and
Yeah.
it would.
Well, once you toss a couple of the rules, the
Yeah,
rest of them go to the wayside anyway. That's
right.
how it always happens.
They have not played by the rules. They're going against the will of the people,
Yeah.
and that really bothers me.
And a
Um,
lot of people would say, no, they're not. Those elections were years ago. They were bogus. They were, people nowadays don't feel that way. But it would be interesting to take a survey of people who would like to keep it the way we have it here now versus the people who want full on wet county, which comes with a lot more problems. Back to this information that we got from my friend, our friend, because he works with us, Hardell.
Yes.
Driving under the influence, and I already covered that one. The next one was just sheer drunkenness. Incidents increased from 160 to 2000 in 2019 to 254 in 2024, and liquor law violations increased from 40 in 2019 to 137 in 2024. And even worse, the official statistics appear to be a significant understatement of the problem. According to source reports, Jonesboro Police Department data does not include incidents in which alcohol was or may have been a contributing factor. So if you don't count that, then how many more would there be if you did count it?
That's
And
true.
even go ahead.
I know someone, a friend of mine, asked a policeman about that, and they're called out several times a night there, but but everything's a-okay.
Well, what is it? They're called out to domestic disturbance, and how often? Probably most of the time, that's related to drinking. Do they even mention drinking on the report? Do they mention? I don't notice a lot of times when they mention it in the newspaper. The drinking was the issue there with the domestic violence or whatever. So, this all needs to be transparent. If it were transparent and people actually saw the specific incidences and how many were attributable to
Right.
alcohol and whatnot, then we've got a base to talk about it. Right now we're kind of shooting in the wind. And then, but back to those figures, it says those figures also have increased dramatically from a low of 328. These are incidents where where alcohol may have been a contributing factor, have increased from a low of 328 in 2019 to 533 in 2024, suggesting the true social cost is far greater than the balance sheet shows, because it appears that all our city council cares about is the bottom
Money.
line as far as money.
Money. Yeah. Yeah. And money's not the most important thing, as we all know. And you see all these problems, societal problems we have, and you notice, there's always some program, many programs to get people off of alcohol and substance abuse, and yet, you'll see pamphlets out, don't drink and drive, or buzz driving is drunk driving. I don't know if it's liquor and or marijuana, but you know,
It should be both.
it should be both, but it's a safety issue. But they'll say that on one side, but then they'll be for the very same people that lament these um, things in society as being bad, but they don't see the connection between, pushing this alcohol. All they see is the money, the dollar
Well, I was going to
signs.
say, I think they see the connection. I don't think they care. See, I'm not as nice as you are. And a lot of other people say, well, they just don't understand or they haven't been educated. I don't think they care. I don't think they want to be educated because it means they might have to then take responsibility for their own actions. And I think that's most of us don't want to have to take responsibility for things that we've done that were either stupid or illegal or immoral or unethical. And so we just as soon not know what those are. People are just dishonest
Right.
themselves.
Turn a
And
blind
that's
eye
what I
to it.
exactly, absolutely. And then if you're looking along with me at the hidden costs beyond the balance sheet,
Hmm.
these are the civic and human costs, law enforcement, fire departments. And I was thinking the other day, I just saw a report where a house had burned down and killed. I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at the fact that I was just as affected by the fact that it killed the family dog as it was that it didn't kill any of the people there. But of course, that affected me because I really love critters.
Right.
And it started in the bedroom, which is when it starts in the bedroom, you can almost figure that it was from smoking.
Yes.
And smoking and alcohol a lot of times go together, especially at night like that. Now, and I was just saying that that's one area when we have looked at this alcohol issue and say that we would like for people to treat alcohol the same way they have treated tobacco. Make it unpopular, make it as unpopular as
Yes.
we've made tobacco, and that's going to change a lot of this. Your fire departments, your emergency medical services, the county jail, hospitals, mental health and family services, especially. How many people are thrown into the court system in mental health and family services because of alcohol specifically? And that's where it's even worse, much worse than cigarettes, because people generally have to go see a therapist because a husband or wife is smoking, but the drinking is a totally different situation. Lots
Yeah.
of people have to see therapists because they live with an alcoholic spouse.
And as I know, children of alcoholics, you grow up, you never forget that. It's a
Yeah.
lifelong thing. Um,
Okay. And then, I'm sorry.
oh, I was just looking at the takeaways. Number five or number six, city governing
Well,
against the
let's go
county.
back. Wait a minute. Let's go back. Excuse me. And I know I'm so
Oh,
bossy.
that's okay.
But the last part he had on that, on the takeaway, he points out the pressure on the county jail, and we know a lot of these people that have the alcohol or driving, they go straight to the county jail, became so acute that a county sales tax was proposed in 2024 to fund a new facility. Tellingly,
Right.
the measure was defeated by voters, many of whom were city residents already bearing the increased cost of crime and its societal impacts. So this pressure extends beyond the institutions to the individuals who work within them, their families, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, one of the reasons that county jail failed was not because it wasn't needed, but because the people who were promoting it came to the public and said, we're not real sure how we're going to do it. We don't know if we're going to tear down the current one and build a new one, if we're going to keep the current one and build a new one too. And then they had no plan. They could not tell us how they were going to use. They won $105 million from the voters, and but they did not have a plan. They didn't have architect because they weren't going to waste the money for an architect until they had passed the tax. But in not having an architect, you could look to see what they were actually going to do, to see what they were going to do with the tax money they were going to be taking from you. So that was also an issue there, and I think that's important to look at. It's
Right.
but we needed jail to put all these people in that they've actually increased because of their stance on alcohol and stuff.
Yeah. And like you said, they want to take care of our wants instead of our needs.
Yes.
And that's a need, but they're
And I
helping
have gone
create
to,
it.
yeah, every time I have gone and spoken to the city council for some of these issues, I have pointed out and used that term. Jonesboro needs to take care of its needs first. Then we
Hmm.
work on the wants, the way we do in our own families. You make sure your roof doesn't leak before you put in a pool, or you make
Hmm.
sure that you've got the house termited before you go out and buy a new motorcycle, or at least sensible people do. You take care of your wants first, your needs first, and then your wants. Now, what
Common
did you have to
sense.
say about the takeaway number 6?
Um, it's talking about a city governing against the county's will.
Right.
And it says ultimately the data points to a fundamental conflict between governance and democracy. Amen to that. The Jonesboro City Administration has consistently approved new alcohol permits in direct opposition to the repeatedly expressed will of Craighead County voters. This is not passive oversight, and we know that, but it appears to be part of a deliberate revenue focused growth strategy. Mayor Copenhaver's administration, which has added more than 100 million in public debt. Am I reading that right?
Yes, you are reading that correctly.
Wow. 100 million in public debt for Jonesboro, Arkansas. Pursues destination 100,000 in population, seems to treat the negative externalities of a saturated alcohol market, rising crime, and social strain as acceptable collateral damage. The mayor's silence on the issue while the city council rubber stamps permits underscore this prioritization. Mayor Copenhaver's silence amidst this exploded alcohol market exposes his administration's unhealthy preference for tax revenue over the public safety and well-being throughout Craighead County. I couldn't have said
Yeah.
it better
The
myself.
only thing that doesn't surprise me about that is that we have a Democrat mayor, and
Right.
it seems that Democrats really, really like to spend money,
They do,
and
don't
they
they?
really, really like to spend it on projects that are not necessarily. needed, but that they think make them popular. Or in the case of Jonesboro, they want us to be Fayetteville East. So it seems
Yes.
like every time we see a project come in, well, Fayetteville or Northwest Arkansas or Conway or Little Rock, they're doing X, Y, or Z. And frankly, I don't worry about what other people do. I worry about what we need around here and what we can manage with
Yes.
our money,
Well, if they
without
use,
raising taxes.
yeah, if they use that line of thinking, didn't you tell me that was it Osceola, their city council, voted against an entertainment district?
Yes, that was an interesting. That came out. Gosh, I don't know. It's been a while back. It popped up on my feed again. I think yesterday, the day before yesterday. I'd already forgotten it. And they have been looking at the entertainment districts that various places around the state have done. Jonesboro, and I think it's Newport, and another place that they've been looking at entertainment district. All an entertainment district is you can carry around your drink. I'm
R-
not seeing very much other than
right.
that. But for somehow they think that that's going to really boost sales, restaurants and bars and things like
Mm.
that. But alcohol, Osceola, they talked about all of the benefits supposedly they would get from this, and then the city council still voted no. Then they talked to some people, and I thought they did a good job because they got pros and cons. And some people said, well, they
Mhm.
thought it might actually increase, the people wherever they were going to put this entertainment district, and it possibly increase tourism. I really don't know how much alcohol increases tourism in any place, but because it always brings crime with it too. But then they
Right.
talked to some people who said, no, we don't need it, that it will bring more crime
Yeah.
than anything else. So, and I think that's a pretty astute view because, here some time back, they claimed that KIT did a story that there'd been 1,000 incidences since in the year that they'd had the entertainment district. And then, of course, that made a lot of people very upset who were responsible for the entertainment district. So they went back to correct, the
Hmm.
problem. Well, the problem was is they got a couple of people on camera before they made all these corrections that admitted that they'd had a problem. And
Right.
so the numbers that they gave, I'm sorry, I'm just going to come right out and say I don't believe them. I do not believe that they've only had 18 in that year's length of time that were alcohol related when you see the statistics we just read off.
Yeah. I don't either. It's unreal because if you've been around drunk people any and see how they act, and um, they just cause trouble most of the time. And I remember when Jonesboro was like 25, 35,000. And
Hmm.
I understand the city growing, but the more a city grows, the more crime comes in and more problems. And can you, I just think it would be better to make what we have better instead of always adding stuff that
Well,
is,
the problem is, and I agree with you 100%. Jonesboro has tried to force growth.
yes.
They've tried to force bring people in, bring business in. They have tried to force growth, and anytime you do that, it's not a natural growth, and you don't have time then to get your roads taken care of, to
Mm-hmm.
build the infrastructure. Just slams it down. So that's
Yeah.
what I have a problem with. I've lived in Jonesboro most of my life. Well, not yet, but anyway, most of my life I've lived in Jonesboro since age 13, and then took some time out to live other places when I got married and things. But I've lived here now for, let's see, over 40 years.
Yeah.
And because I moved up here in 83. So I guess that's what, 42 years, something like that. And it was a great size then. We still had, I think we had as much more shopping than we do now. Since the storm blew away the mall, we have
Mm-hmm.
very little shopping for like, apparel and stuff. Um, and it was a much nicer atmosphere.
Yes.
And I don't say that it couldn't be a nice atmosphere again, but you've got to plan for growth and have it happen naturally instead of forcing it the way that we've seen in Jonesboro, and especially with nonsense like this. Let's do an entertainment district to draw people in. Draw people from where? Are we talking about tourists who come and then leave? Or are we talking about because the downtown is such a small area? It's what, 2 blocks?
Yeah.
So I'm disappointed in the municipal league attitudes of our city, and that's what's creating a lot of the problem. I think is our focus on municipal league and their views on what cities ought to be.
Right. And people think if they don't drink, it doesn't affect them sometimes, but it really does. Um, Extra crime, um, social problems, um, children being neglected. Um, how much of their money from their paycheck goes to booze instead of buying their children's school supplies or clothing.
If you look at the statistics of alcohol, and Bob, he's not on with us today, but Bob can attest to this. Just about, well, I don't know the percentage, but a huge percentage of the crimes that we see in Jonesboro have some relation to alcohol. And if you've been watching the news, and I watch it all the time, try to watch KIT every day to see what's going on here locally. And I don't know about you, but reading the paper and seeing KIT news, we've had a huge number of people arrested for abuse of children.
Yes, that's very
And
disturbing.
I know that most of that is related to alcohol consumption. You have to get drunk before you can do that.
Oh
And
gosh,
we're just seeing just an avalanche of it.
yes,
And that's one of the results from this open idea that we can have alcohol everywhere and it not make a difference.
it's foolishness to think it wouldn't affect that. And I want somebody to tell me one good thing about alcohol. One good thing. There's not one thing that it's it's good about. There's nothing, no redeeming qualities that I could ever imagine.
Well, you'll get a lot of argument from people who go, I don't drink to excess. I'm not one of these people. I'm not an alcoholic. And I have a drink when I come home to relax. And it makes me feel all nice and relaxed and gets rid of that stress from being at work all day and everything. And that's what they'll tell you. And that's one of the issues we face in our campaign here. Like I said, we're not trying to ban it. We're trying to give it the same treatment that we've given tobacco, for the
Right.
last 40 years. Um, Over 40 years. But you've got a lot of people that fight us because, they're closet drinkers. And that doesn't mean they get in the closet and drink. That means that they actually drink themselves. And so they don't want, they're not in favor of what we're doing here. And one of the things Bob and I were talking about earlier is what is very disappointing are the churches that have not gotten involved here. Hardell
Absolutely.
pointed out that we, Hardell pointed out in his material here, we've got over 100 churches in Jonesboro.
What
And
we
you
call
would
the
think,
town of churches or the city of churches,
yes, City of Churches at
a
one point it was
nickname.
called the City of Churches. And you would think that when we were dealing with this alcohol situation, that the pastors of those churches, now we've got a lot of churches that don't have a problem with alcohol, but the majority of churches here in the South do have a problem, or at least they give lip service to having a problem with alcohol. And you would think those people would be working to eliminate this and make their opinions known to city council and say, stop it. Just stop it. When is enough enough?
Right.
But we don't hear anything, like we didn't hear anything from the churches, or very little from the churches, with the library situation here from about 3 years ago, when they had
Yes.
found all of this really execrable, materials there that was geared toward children. And we didn't have all of the 100 churches pastors come out and say, are you people crazy?
Right.
That
And
you're exposing your kids to this?
they're
And
supposed to
we
be
said the same thing with alcohol.
the
Yeah, we said
watchman
the
on the
same thing with
wall,
alcohol.
and
Exactly.
they're not
Exactly.
fulfilling. To me, they're not fulfilling their what they're supposed to do. I think that they're afraid that, oh, that's a political issue, or they don't want to get into some sticky political issue.
They don't want to lose any ties from some of their members who like alcohol.
Yeah,
I look
yeah.
at it that.
Yeah, that's probably true right there. And well, I mean, what did they think? Jesus wasn't popular in with the people, the Pharisees, and he was popular with the regular people. But I mean, he made waves. So
Exactly.
why do they think they shouldn't make any waves?
Well, they've got a cozy living, most of them, and as long as they don't step on too many toes, they can keep their jobs. And I know I'm being really ugly, but somebody has to do it because I've sat and watched this for now 20 or 30 years. We did in the beginning have some preachers that stood up, and at this point, it really opened my eyes with the library situation. We didn't have any more preachers that came up and said, "This has got to stop now, and you're going to do it. These are our children.
Right.
These are our gifts from God. These are the children that will be running this country, and we don't want their minds polluted. They need good literature. They don't need any sexually based literature at that age. And so
Absolutely.
it totally opened my eyes with our preachers. We do have an issue here. And I would like to be available, when the judgment comes and we all face the judgment. And God asked them, where were you when these issues came around, the alcohol and the pornography for kids? Where were you? What is going to
Mm,
be their answer?
yeah, there's just a handful, it seems like, that stands up. There was
Yeah,
one, and he was from Harrisburg. That was Jason Gold.
yeah.
That was at the library that time, and there were
And
three.
he wasn't even from
Okay,
Craighead County. And that was good.
right.
And we did have a couple of others that showed up, but the vast
Yeah,
majority, if you've got 100 churches in Jonesboro, theoretically, you've got 100 pastors. Where
right.
were they?
Bob
And
said
this
there were three
alcohol
too.
is a issue.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
3 out of 100. Oh my gosh! I mean, what are they thinking? And
That means 97% of the pastors in Jonesboro don't care anything about child pornography or alcohol in the city.
yeah,
Now
th-
that's ridiculous. I know it is, but some people could say that.
but they're not being the watchman on the wall. They're not. I know. Um, you know, you have to be careful with politics and whatnot, but that goes beyond politics. That goes into morality. The porn in the library
Actually,
and
yes. And actually, that Johnson Amendment doesn't have anything to do with issues like cultural issues. It says you cannot get in your pulpit and um, um, stand behind certain candidates. You're not going to push
right
candidates. Doesn't say that you can't do any of the rest of this. That's what the
issues.
churches have bought into. Well, oh, we can't do anything about that. Yes, you can. And keep in mind, this is just amazing to me. Do you know who it was who was responsible for eliminating slavery, at least getting it started in the United States, getting rid of it? It was the preachers.
Yeah,
You know, every good social movement in this country was begun by the preachers. And where are they today?
AWOL most for the most
Yeah,
part, but um, we appreciate those that do step up, and I hope some of them see
very
this
much.
and feel compelled. Their conscience bothers them because we need them to step up, and Christ is gonna they're gonna have to face Christ someday, and
Absolutely. And I know what I've said has been pretty harsh, but I might as well say it because it's how I actually feel. And I've been in this, political activism over various issues since 1992 and actually got dabbled in it even before then. And I've never seen the apathy among certain groups that you would think would be involved. That I've, back then in 1994, if this had happened, there would have been 5,000 people at the library at that meeting. There
oh
would be
yes,
5,000 people at the city council meeting about this alcohol. Because there used to be, I don't, Bob would, I hesitate to say, well, I can say dozens and dozens of people that showed up at the ABC board meetings to fight this alcohol. And unfortunately, they were treated really badly. They were talked down to and really, just verbally slapped is what they were done. But they showed up to fight these alcohol permits. And now, because of the way the ABC board ignored them and the way our city council ignores us, And they are, as Bob had said, probably even worse than the ABC board because you can talk and talk. They just flat out ignore you. They don't even watch you. They'll be
Right.
sitting there either reading their phone or reading something. Very few of them even really engage with you if
Mm.
you go and protest some of this stuff with the
Right.
alcohol. So
Well,
it's
we're
very, very
peons.
disappointing.
Citizens
Exactly.
are
And
peons anymore.
yes, and consider it's been 80 years, 81 years since Craighead County residents first voted to prohibit alcohol sales, and twice since then. And our city council continues to add to the permits, add to the alcohol every chance they get.
I know it's totally ridiculous. So he concludes, says on his seventh point, when is enough enough? The case of Jonesboro exemplifies a classic governance dilemma where municipal economic policy is in direct sustained conflict with the express democratic will of the broader county electorate. That is true. The city's status as a moist island in a dry county has created a paradoxical situation defined by exploding alcohol tax revenues, a corresponding rise in alcohol related crimes, and significant hidden costs placed on public services. This policy path has put the city administration at odds with its constituents, raising fundamental questions about public safety, civic responsibility, and democratic representation. As the number of permits and the associated revenues and crime rates continue to climb, one question remains: when is enough enough? And I think that is a good note to end on. What do you think, Iris? Do you have any thoughts on
I
that?
think it is. And one last thought about that. When this law that the ABC board really, it's a fraudulent law and it all goes all the way back to 1945 when the original law was passed. But they did allow the city councils to determine, city councils are quorum courts in the case of a county, to determine when enough was enough. And they could say, how much, what is the availability? And if your availability is such, you don't have to okay these permits. And there shouldn't be any kind of laws, that you would have to worry about a lawsuit because it's plainly stated in laws and by the ABC board that if you consider it that there is enough available for everybody's convenience, you don't have to continue to allow these permits. And in Jonesboro up till now has continued to pass them. Some of them, and some of it was said, well, because they were afraid they'd be sued if they didn't pass this next one because they had, given permission to so many of these others. But the ABC board specifically dealt with that.
Right.
So when is enough enough? Maybe everybody out there should just send that question in to the city council and the mayor. When is enough enough?
That is true. And on that note, we will end our podcast until next week, and hope you tune in for another episode of Sobering Truths.